So, the 43-day government shutdown, it's finally over. But here's the thing, even though the news cameras have moved on, a really strange and damaging fog was left hanging over the US economy. And honestly, its effects are still being felt long after the government door swung back open.
And this quote from Carl Shamala at Corpay, man, it just nails it. For weeks, the entire nation was basically flying blind. We were forced to make these huge, critical decisions based on, well, feelings and guesswork instead of actual hard facts.
And look, this uncertainty wasn't just some abstract idea. It came with a very, very real and staggering price tag. We're talking an estimated $21 billion in wages that just vanished from federal workers' paychecks. That's cash just gone, pulled right out of family budgets and the wider economy.
So, how in the world did we get here? Yeah, the government's back online, but the economy and millions of people are still trying to clean up the mess. Let's really dig into what happened and, more importantly, why it matters so much.
All right, first things first. To really get a handle on all this fallout, we've got to rewind a bit. Let's take a quick look at the event that kicked this whole thing off.
So for 43 days, and yeah, that is the longest stretch in U.S. history, a political stalemate in Washington just brought huge parts of the government to a grinding halt. You can see right here on the timeline how things got worse week by week, from those first missed paychecks to military families getting hit right around Veterans Day.
So what was this all about anyway? Well, when you boil it all down, it was a fight over policy. The two sides just could not agree on extending some expiring tax credits tied to the Affordable Care Act. And that disagreement, it led to this historic funding crisis.
Okay, now this brings us to one of the weirdest and, frankly, most dangerous consequences of the shutdown, a total lack of information. This data blackout had a huge impact on our ability to see what was really going on with the economy.
Here's a good way to think about it. Normally, the government's pumping out a steady stream of economic data. It's like a GPS for policymakers. But without it, folks at the Federal Reserve are trying to steer the world's biggest economy through a thick fog, forced to rely on things like credit card data and private surveys instead.
And I'm not talking about minor stuff here. We're talking about the big ones. The October jobs report, crucial inflation data, nearly 24 key reports just weren't collected. The White House even admitted that some of this data might be lost forever. That's a permanent blank spot in our economic history.
And this is really the core of the problem, right? Like Shimada said, without facts, the economy becomes like one of those Rorschach inkblot tests. Anybody can just project their own beliefs onto it, claim things are great, claim things are terrible, and there's no real data to prove them wrong.
And of course, this data fog rolled in at the absolute worst possible time. You've got a trade war going on, big debates about inflation, and the Federal Reserve desperately needed this info to make huge decisions like whether to raise or lower interest rates. They were completely stuck.
All right, so we've talked about the big picture, the economic fog, but let's bring this down to earth, because this wasn't just an abstract problem for economists. This became a very real, very tangible crisis for millions of American families.
Just look at these numbers. The sheer scale of this it's just staggering. We are talking about over 3 million federal and military personnel who were directly hit by this, either sent home or forced to work without knowing when their next paycheck would come. These are real people in every single state.
And what does that mean in practical terms? It means millions of missed paychecks. If the shutdown had dragged on just a little bit longer, we would have seen 4.5 million paychecks withheld. I mean, think about the devastating impact that has on families across the country.
It got so bad, you guys, that thousands of families, I'm talking about military families too, during the week of Veterans Day, were forced to turn to food banks just to get by, just to put food on the table.
And this quote from Shannon Razadin. Wow, it just stops you in your tracks, doesn't it? Strength does not fill a pantry. It's such a powerful reminder of the heartbreaking real-world consequences that were hidden behind all those political headlines. Okay, so let's try to wrap our heads around all of this. What's the takeaway here? When you put the economic uncertainty and the personal hardships side by side, what is the real cost of a government shutdown? Because you gotta look beyond the day-to-day political drama, right? When you do, a much darker, much more troubling picture of the cost starts to come into focus. It's not just about the numbers. It's about the deep damage this does to our economy and to our people. See, the true cost, it's not just one thing. It's this toxic combination. You're creating long-term economic risk by making policymakers fly blind, while at the same time you're inflicting immediate and just awful suffering on millions of families. And it was a brutal wake-up call, showing just how many Americans, including those who serve our country, are living right on a razor's edge.
And that really leaves us with one big, nagging question. This wasn't just some political game. It had a real price tag, measured in billions of lost dollars and in the dignity of families lining up for food. So you have to ask, at the end of the day, who really ends up paying that bill?